In this video, follow along as we remove everything from the inside of the nose on this Singer 201. Let's get started. Okay, so first things first, if you have a needle in your machine, take the little needle bar clamp thumb screw and turn it towards you counterclockwise. Get that needle out of your machine. You do not want to stab yourself. Also, it goes without saying, don't do any of this while your machine is plugged in. You should have it unplugged at this point. So now we can jump in and start disassembling the nose. So this is your faceplate, nose plate, and the way that it's held on is by this thumb screw as well as the little screw you see up here. Now, if this screw is tightened down too far, you'll have to loosen it before you remove the faceplate, but you should be able to just loosen the thumb screw and take the faceplate right off like that. See how you slide it up and it goes through this hole right here? And we're gonna set that aside. Now, as I start taking the parts off the machine, I'm going to set them aside, and I use just fold top or zip close plastic sandwich bags. For me, this is how I like to keep all of my parts organized. But you have to figure out what's going to work best for you. If this is your first time and you're worried about remembering what goes where, some of the more obvious ones, you wouldn't need to do this, but you could always put little post-it notes inside with a description of what that group of parts is. So faceplate, whatever makes sense to you, put that down. Language that you will understand. So I'm going to also take this screw out. Just checking to make sure I have the right bit. Ooh, this one's loose. I can just spin it out, I think. This one I'm also going to put with the faceplate. So I have the faceplate, the thumb screw, and the screw for the top of the faceplate. I put all of my parts in a big shoebox for a machine. It just makes it easier for me because usually I can have 6 or 8 apart all at once. So one shoebox per machine, I'm usually pretty good. So I think what we'll do next is go ahead and get the presser bar out. So at this point, it doesn't matter really if you have it up or down, but first you want to remove the presser foot, and that is with this little thumb screw. Set it aside. Now I want to get the thread cutter off, and usually these are the ones that are a booger to get off. So if you lower your needle bar, it might give you a little bit more clearance once you start to work it down. And did you see I put some penetrating oil on the presser bar before I started to try to work this loose? And what I'm doing is I'm rocking kind of back and forth and pulling down at the same time. Just be careful, because if your thread cutter is installed properly, the top edge should be sharp. So you don't want to push down with your thumb on that, because if it's sharp enough, you could cut yourself. So I'm just kind of wiggling, twisting, and it's slowly coming down. And once we clean these parts and get all of this varnished oil off, this will go on slightly easier, but I don't make any promises. They can be a real pain to get back on. So there we go. Thread cutter off. If you don't have one, don't sweat it. Some people love them, some people hate them. To me, I always use my snips. I rarely use the thread cutter, but if it's on the machine when I restore it, I always put it back. Now we're going to start up top here. This is the thumb screw that controls the pressure on your presser foot. So when you're sewing different fabrics, you may want to loosen the pressure or decrease it, or you may want to increase it, which you would be loosening it by raising it up, tightening it, making more pressure by turning it down. Let's go ahead and we're going to spin this all the way out. So this one's missing the felt that would normally be in this hole. They get lost over the years. It's not really a big deal. You can replace it if you can find a felt that fits, but if you don't, as long as you're remembering to put a drop of oil down into this hole every once in a while for the presser bar to kind of, it rides up and down in this hole. As long as it's lubricated, you're fine. So presser foot, thumb screw, put that aside. Now we're going to slide this big spring up through the hole that we've made in the top by removing that thumb screw. Be careful when you slide it up because on the top should be a little washer. Sometimes they're missing, but hopefully this one isn't. So as I'm sliding it up, do you see that? Little washer. You don't want to lose it. Set that aside. Now you can pull off your spring. Now this is the next screw that we want to loosen. So again, just checking to make sure that I have the right size bit. And I'm going to give you a tip that will help. Sometimes when you're taking out the needle bar and presser bar in machines, if there's enough lint and gunk here on the bars, before you start removing them, this is what you should do. I take a Q-tip with the penetrating oil on the end. This is the Croil oil, penetrating oil. And I will run it around the presser bar. This penetrating oil cleans off that varnished grease. That's just that extra layer of thickness that can make it hard sometimes to get it to move all the way out of this little slide block right here. And even the holes in the casting of the machine, these bushings. So I'll just kind of get in there and make sure I'm removing some of that lint and gunk if there is any. Sometimes that just helps. So let's get this screw loose. These are, so far, every screw is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. If there is a screw on the machine, which I know there's at least one on this one, that is not lefty-loosey, I will tell you. But if I don't always tell you, it's lefty-loosey. Change angles a little bit just so hopefully my hands don't get in the way too much. So loosening this screw. I like to use my Chapman for this because it has this little mini ratcheting screwdriver that it comes with, which also acts as a handle for your screwdriver and gives you a little bit more torque when you're trying to loosen some of these tougher screws. And you just never know which one's going to give you trouble. So and you're going to want to put pressure and loosen, and this one actually isn't bad. There we go. This is a set screw, okay? So when you hear me talk about set screws, this is a set screw. It sets up against the presser bar at whatever point you set it at, so that it's not going in a hole into the presser bar or anything like that. It just presses up against the presser bar, and when you tighten it down, it holds the presser bar in place. Now we can remove the presser bar. Before I do that, I'm going to put a drop of penetrating oil right in that hole. And then I'm going to see how stuck is this presser bar. Do you see this isn't turning at all? I have a couple options. I can turn the machine back on its hand wheel so the nose is facing straight up and let that penetrating oil work. Usually that's what I would do. Because I'm filming this for you, it would be really hard for you to see what's going on in the nose. That would be an awkward shot. So I'm going to do my best to get this out without flipping it up. Maybe stick a little bit of oil here too, a little bit more. Now, if it's not going to come out very easily on its own, I have two different tools I like to use. I have non-marring pliers, different sizes. These two get me by pretty much for everything that I need, and I replace these plastic jaws when they get really bad. I'll put a link to them in the description box below. I try to use the non-marring ones when possible, just so I'm not marking up any of these bars or whatever part I'm grabbing. Sometimes I have to use metal ones, but let's try this first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around here and I'm going to grab the bottom of the presser bar, and I'm just going to see if I can get it to rotate. And do you see? It is. You do not want to push it forward, backward, sideways. Don't do that. You can bend these. I know that they seem like they're strong and hefty, but if you're really fighting to get it free and you do this too much, you may end up with a bent presser bar. So I'm just gonna kind of work that. Once you get enough coming out the top, you can grab it. And there we go. There's the presser bar. And the slide block that it runs through should just come right out at that point. So now we have that. Now when I do the presser bar, I always put the presser bar lifter in the bag with the presser bar. All the screws are different. There's no way that I can mix up that group of parts and put this screw in the wrong place or something. So that one comes out next. And we'll see. Very good. And some people may wonder why I break the machines down this far. There's a lot of reasons. I like it, number one, it's fun. Number two, I guess I'm a little bit of a clean freak, but I feel like when they get this gunky, it can hinder how the machine works. Plus, touching any of this stuff while I'm sewing, if I get it on my hands, I'm gonna get it on my project. I don't wanna do that either. So here we have the presser bar lifter and the hinge screw, and it's called a hinge screw or a shoulder screw because this little part right here that starts before the threads is what is sitting inside this hole, which allows me to tighten the screw down so the lifter is secure, but it still can spin on that shoulder or hinge. So lifter, screw. So that is all the parts for the presser bar. What I will do now is put them in a bag. So you should have the presser bar itself, the slide block, the foot and the thumb screw for the foot, the spring, the tiny washer that goes on top of the spring, don't lose that. Thread cutter if you had one, set screw that goes in the slide block, the lifter and the hinge screw, and then the thumb screw on top for controlling the pressure. Those are all the parts you should have that you just took off your machine, bag them up, set them aside. Well, that was pretty easy so far. Now let's go ahead and move on to the needle bar. So the first thing that I want to do before I can get the needle bar out is to take off the needle clamp. And there's this little clamp that clamps the needle down. Plus this is also holding in a little thread guide for us. And this is just this little screw right here left to loosen. There we go. Always good downward pressure. If you do not have the screw driver, if you don't have the bit inside that head of the screw all the way and you start turning, you can strip it out. Now this little screw for the needle clamp is a short little thing with this little stubby kind of button on the back. Let's set that aside and then just see if you can wiggle this free. If you just kind of grab the thumb screw for the needle clamp, you should be able to just kind of wiggle it back and forth a little bit, pull down at the same time. And if it's really fighting you, let's lower this. That's where your penetrating oil comes in handy. Also, make sure you don't have a ton of pressure on the needle clamp thumb screw. Make sure that's loose. There we go. See? Popped off. So if I take this and I kind of just give it a shake, this one's pretty gunky. There we go. There's our little thread guide. And if I twist this now, I should be able to twist it fully apart. So there's my little thumb screw for the needle clamp and the needle clamp. Now we're going to loosen the needle clamp screw. That's this little screw right here. But I'm putting a drop of oil while I'm sitting here talking right here. This needle clamp has a little gap in it and the threads, you can reach the threads with the penetrating oil through that little gap. So I just put a drop in there and I'm going to use my other screwdriver and hope for the best. So I am grabbing the machine, I'm pushing in, and no, that's not gonna work. And I don't wanna keep trying and damage the screw. So I'm gonna flip her up on her backside. So you all know which screw I'm going for here, and be overly generous with this. I'm making sure that screwdriver is in there and I'm just leaning in. There we go. Do this slowly, downward, and start out slow because these are just gummy. And if you go too fast, you can strip it. It's coming out now. There we go. And you can see this is a tapered head that goes down into the needle bar clamp, let's set that aside. Now, I don't know if you can see all this gunk here, but we're gonna go ahead and get that off before we even try to get this needle bar out. Same with down at the bottom end. Okay, I'm gonna put her back down. Okay, I can just twist this with my fingers. That's good news, but I want you to see something. What happens? Let me put this down at its lowest point. I want you to see something. Do you see the problem that we have? Oh wow, I can't get the needle bar out. Why? Because there's this little silver thing up here, this little cap, that's going to stop me from getting the needle bar out. So if I want to take it out, and you guys can let me know if you have a better way, but this is always a problem for me, I'm going to have to remove this. I like to push it out. Now I have many different sizes, diameters of these little brass rods. They came from a gun cleaning kit. A punch would work well too, but do you see this? How used it is and how kind of fluted and flared out the edges are? It's because a lot of times this will bend before this will bend, or whatever I'm punching it on will bend. So I like that. And I can always grind these down if they get too big around and smushed out on the bottom. So I'm going to use a little hammer and I'm going to tap this out just like this. Try to keep my hands out of the way. On the floor. 1 second. Here we go. That didn't take too much to get that out. And if you look at the top, there's no damage. I didn't damage the top of it. So now I can pull the needle bar right out the top. And when I'm putting it back together, I'll just punch it right back in. Now, this is another reason why I work on towels. That piece kind of flew. But usually if it lands on the towel, some of those tinier screws, it would be really hard to find on the floor. The towel will catch their fall. So I'm just pulling this right out through the top. There's our needle bar. And if I give this a little rotate, I can also pull out the needle bar clamp itself. Set that aside. So a couple more things that I want to take off. This little gauge right here, if I can get it, a little drop of oil again. I don't want to bend it, just wiggling and kind of pulling up and it's coming off. There we go. Set that aside as well. And one last part that we want to take off before we're done. She's getting all kinds of exercises. And also, my husband always kind of raises an eyebrow when I call them a she. You know, I don't know where that started. I had to switch out to my Chapman there, but I don't know where that started. Do you call yours she's? Kind of funny. Now it's a habit I can't break. So here we go. There is the thread guide, the lower thread guide for the needle bar, and the little screw that holds it on. So we can set that aside. So let's look at what we took off now. We have the needle bar, this little gauge here that we're going to use when we put the needle bar back in, needle bar clamp, thumb screw for the needle clamp, the little thread guide that goes in the needle clamp, needle bar clamp screw, needle clamp screw, the tiny one with the button, and then the thread guide with its little screw. Not too bad, right? So bag these up. Oh, and the little cap that came out of the top. Don't forget that. So what is next? Next would be the thread take-up system. That's this part right here. This is the thread take-up. So when you are sewing, this little take-up arm is moving up and down, taking up the thread. That's the thread take-up. We're going to take it out. Now, the first screw that I want to remove, this one right here, is a right to loosen, left to tighten. Do you see how the head is designed on this screw? It's like the slot doesn't go all the way to each side. That's your indicator of what kind of screw it is usually, and this one is right to loosen. So it's going to feel a little counterintuitive when you try it. Now, I always attempt to remove these if I can. Sometimes I can't, and I don't want to damage the head of the screw. So I'm always going to give it my best shot. So let's get the screwdriver and give that a go, see if we can get it out. There, see if changing the angle again will make it so the camera doesn't want to be confused. Now, with the ratcheting, I'm going to flip this over. There's one side that says out and one side that says in. So since I'm turning it the opposite way compared to normal to loosen it, I'm going to put it so the in side is pointing up. And then get the screwdriver in the slot. Lots of pressure using my lever. So here's where two hands are really nice because when I do this, if I don't hold the hand wheel still, the whole mechanism wants to move. So let's see. There we go. Just had to hold that hand wheel still. So let's get this one out. And here we go. There's the screw. This is what holds on the linkage that holds the needle bar clamp on. Now that we have this screw out, we should be able to just pull that linkage off. And there's the linkage on the thread take-up for the needle bar. Set that aside. Now we have two more screws that we want to remove. One is holding this part here and one is holding this part here. To access those screws, that's in the holes here on the back side. Well, one of them, and then one of them you can just see the screw in there. So I'm going to spin her around. So I'm kind of holding the camera for this, so hopefully it's not too wobbly. But what we're looking for in this hole is the screw and the counterbalance in the nose. And maybe if I shine a flashlight in here, assuming my flashlight works, you should be able to see the head of a screw down in there. That's a screw that I'm trying to loosen. It's going to help to hold the hand wheel still when I do this because I'm trying to keep this from spinning away from me, which I could strip out the screw head if I do that. So that's what screw I'm aiming for with my screwdriver in just a second. So sadly, there are a few places on your machine that your Chapmans aren't going to work. This is one of them. So I'm just going to get a little oil down on that just to be safe. And my screwdriver is going down in the hole. And if you don't want to hold the counterbalance, you can use your fingers if you feel safe enough to kind of hold that counterbalance inside the nose still to keep it from spinning. Or if you have a little block of wood or a handle to like a paintbrush or something, but downward pressure. Did you hear that? That's a good sound. And we're going to take this out. This is a set screw. I don't know if I said that. And see if I can knock her out. Here we go. That's the set screw that we just removed. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to loosen this little screw right here too. And this screwdriver should fit. So downward pressure. There we go. Love that sound. And out it comes. And I'm taking it all the way out. Yet another screwdriver too. So it helps to have different ones because you just never know what you're going to need to fit the little screws. So another set screw, but it's skinnier and longer than the one we just took out. So I'm not worried about mixing them up. Now let me flip her back up. So the thread take-up that we're trying to remove, we actually have two posts. And like if I pull on this one, I feel some movement, but I don't want to pull this one out without pulling on this one too. And this one, probably because I had put penetrating oil in here, is just going to pull straight out for me. You want to pull it straight out because if you pull one side too hard, you can bend the entire thread take-up. So here we go. This is our thread take-up. And do you see this right here? This is pushed in through this hole. There is a little opening in the back right through this hole that if this were stuck, you could take a punch and tap on it to get it moving and pushed out. But there's our thread take-up. This slides out. I'm just going to take it out. And now I have my whole thread take-up system aside. So let's look at all those parts. The thread take-up, the upper post for the thread take-up, the linkage for the needle bar clamp, the right to loosen screw for the thread take-up, big set screw, and the smaller set screw. So I think we can remove one more part and we'll wrap up this video. That is the tension pin releasing lever. That's this right here. And there's a little screw right there. We're just going to get that out. This is another shoulder screw. It's not the same as any of these. It's different. So again, I can put all these parts together and I don't have to worry about mixing them up. Sorry if my hands are in your way. That is the biggest challenge. But let's just get this out. little bit more. There she goes. And do you see the shoulder right here? That's because this right here rocks on that. And this is what, when we raise our presser bar, the slide block comes up against it, rocks it forward, puts pressure on a pin inside the tension assembly that pushes that pin forward and releases pressure on our tension disc. That's how when we raise our presser foot and we pull our fabric away, it's easy to pull it away because there isn't any tension on the upper thread. So set that aside along with all those other parts. They're all going in the same bag. So that is it. We just removed everything that I'm going to remove out of the nose of this machine. Hopefully you were as fortunate as I was and you did not have a bunch of stuck screws. That was a great start, but we're not done yet. So I'm not going to hold my breath just yet. When we come back, we will go ahead and remove the tension assembly piece by piece, and we'll get busy down here in the hook area. This will go pretty quick, so I think we can combine both parts in the next video. Shouldn't be a problem. Until then, I wish you all well, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye.